And it is on. And we are here with David Ellefson of Megadeth. How you doing?
Excellent. How are you?
Good, good. So we're not going to really talk Megadeth today. We're talking your new project with Frank Bello of Anthrax. And where does that connection come from? I know you did the Heart Key bass clinics together. Is that where you met him, or did you know him a little bit before that?
I've known Frank a little bit over the years, not really that well, to be honest with you, just kind of buddies in passing, at
Right.
various shows and things like that. But yeah, this whole thing for these songs, we started doing. When I came back to Megadeth, I started using Harkey because I wanted to reproduce these classic tones that I had from back in the day, Rust in Peace, So Far So Good, So What, Countdown, and stuff like that when I was using Harkey. And as Frank and I were playing together on the Big Four shows and whatnot, he started kind of checking my gear out, and so we got him over on the winning team with Harkey.
Harkey, yeah.
And pretty quickly they put the artist relations guy Mark Mengi at Harkey put me and Frank out doing some bass clinics together. So it was just kind of this, that great synergy of 2010 through 2012 when we were doing all this Big Four stuff. We did Jägermeister music tour, Megadeth, Slayer, Anthrax, all these things. So it was just a cool time for me and Frank. And as we started doing the clinics, one of the first things that hit me, I was thinking, you're demoing how you play in Anthrax. I'm kind of demoing how I play in Megadeth. It's like we should write some tunes together and have some backing tracks, if nothing else. And so Jay Rustin, who has worked on the Anthrax records and Snow and Sour and a handful of different things. He's also a bass player. So we approached him at Bass Player Live a couple years ago in LA, and he said, yeah, I'd love to. I'll happily jump in and help you guys out. So, it was all just kind of a spec thing. We just got together. We did it. When Anthrax came through Phoenix this last year, I went down to pick Frank up, brought him over to my house. He played a couple of tunes that he had, and it was just, he had the beginnings of Tell the World and Booze and Cigarettes, and I had the track Here Again.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's like we had three tunes, and it's like, look, we're not quitting our day jobs. Obviously, we're bass players in Anthrax and Megadeth, respectively. But to have these tunes be for these clinics, and when we realized, like, wow, this is more than just some like musicians wanking all over this stuff. This is like these are like real songs. That's how it happened, and now here we are. Megaforce, which is Anthrax's label, had offered to release them, and here we are. They're out, and now here we go.
Yeah, and that's got to be the great thing about making an album like that is that you don't have the pressure of your bands. Because when Megadeth makes an album, people go, "Oh, it doesn't sound like Rust in Peace. It doesn't sound like Euthanasia. Oh, that's so." But with this, it's like, no, it's whatever, right?
It is whatever. And I think what's cool about it, first of all, we're two bass players, and we're both playing guitar. Which Frank and I are both pretty good guitar players. I'm a good rhythm guitar player. I'm not a lead player. And same with Frank. At least we can play guitar and supporting instruments to play our songs we want to write.
Right.
And some people, obviously, we're pretty accomplished bass players, but it's nice to have a kind of a palette of other instruments you can use to help you create the songs you want to create.
Yeah, now just clear something up for me. Who's singing on the songs? I heard them. I got a SoundCloud file, but who's singing
It's Frank.
on them?
It's Frank. Yeah, Frank. And it's funny when we were doing the Metal Masters stuff, because again, we digress for a minute. We started doing the bass clinics.
Right.
That turned into Metal Masters, which originally was me and Frank, Charlie Benanti, and Mike Portnoy the night before the Big Four show in Indio. And then it turned into a whole bunch of us the night before the Yankee Stadium Big Four in New York. And now they've just continued to grow. In fact, we're doing Metal Masters 5 the night before NAMM. And so, the intention of these songs was backing music for us to work with at clinics.
And perform to.
Once we just realized, wow, these are songs, and we can, kind of turn them into instrumental versions at clinics, strip them down if we need. But they're good standalone songs, and then we we're to use them in the Metal Master stuff. It's cool to know that there's an intentional outlet for them. That we can perform them with some backing musicians, like we'll do at Metal Masters 5 coming up, and also to know that there are things we can use for our clinic purposes and for the fans to enjoy them, and probably something that's kind of out of the blue. It's not two bass players. It's not just a bunch of bass rumbling. They're actually The
They're
real
full of,
song.
but as you're doing this and you're coming up with these riffs, aren't you somewhere in the back of your head saying, "Oh, I should keep this for my band. I mean, I can't just give this away."
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, when we write, because Anthrax is very defined, Megadeth were very defined.
Right.
And I think one thing certainly in Megadeth we've learned is there's some music that just does not belong there. It can be a great song,
Okay.
it can be a great piece of music, and if it doesn't sound like it should be Megadeth, then we've talked about that even just in recent months. Then then it shouldn't be on a Megadeth record. But with that said, we all have publishing deals, and we have people that we write songs with, and we do other things
Right.
because as creative people, you need to have that outlet.
Oh, absolutely. And what's the plan then long term? Is this sort of one and done, or do you see yourselves going out on tour and not just clinics, but doing like actual shows or opening for somebody or?
Well, it's funny. We've got a few offers to do a couple of things. First Metal Masters. There's a couple of clinic opportunities that are coming up ahead, and
Right.
and a couple of people heard them and said, "Wow, you guys want to do some shows?" Which of course then goes, "All right, well, we need a drummer, we need a guitar player." Well, actually, Jeff Friedel, who played drums on it, he's busy working in A Perfect Circle and Devo and the various things that he does. So yeah, I think the intention here wasn't, we're going to go on tour now because
Right.
we've got to fit now between Megadeth and Anthrax schedules. But, should the phone ring for something cool, it's kind of hip that we have this little thing here that if it seems right and we have the time and it doesn't interfere with our day jobs, I think kind of the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and what I find interesting about the day jobs, as you call them, is that after, 25, 30 years now, you
Yeah.
guys are supposed to be winding down and going into retirement, and both bands seem to be actually ramping up and doing more
We are?
stuff.
Retirement? Really? I
Yeah,
didn't
but
get the memo.
you're doing more stuff now. I mean, Anthrax is currently working on an album.
Right.
Megadeth, you've been doing some touring. The last album that just came out, are you into a process of making a new album, or are you still in the touring
We
cycle?
have now a timeline of the rest of our year for touring, and
Okay.
then when we're looking to get active with the next record. We're technically still on the tour, and I think that's what's kind of cool about these songs with me and Frank is Megadeth is off the road until Soundwave in Australia. Obviously, NAMM is coming up. NAMM is often very kind of muso-oriented. So it's kind of the perfect little window to pop these out so the fans can enjoy them. It's not right on top of something we're doing with Megadeth right now. And, of course, Anthrax is a little bit off the radar working on a new record. So the timing is pretty cool of this right now.
Yeah, it's really good. And it comes out on January 14th. People should check it out. Before we go here, My Life With Deth, your autobiography.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about that. You wrote this book, and you've been going out doing book signings. What's that schedule like? Are more book signings coming along?
Yeah, there's going to be a few more things coming up. It's funny, when you author certainly an autobiographical book, it kind of opens your life up to a whole bunch of different things: speaking engagements, book signings. You essentially are opening your life up for people to know much more about you, rather than just the musical side that people see sort of through the
filter.
Just the filter of being on stage and a recording. So you kind of make your life pretty transparent through these kind of books, which has been cool for me. I've enjoyed it, and what I'm happy about with the book is that I think the thread through it is, I'm just a kid who, one day the bug for the bass and hard rock and heavy metal came over me, and that's my life. And there's been a bunch of other stuff, obviously, as anybody's life does, some struggles and triumphs and various obstacles through the way. And, hopefully, when I read it back and just looked at my life, I was like, I've been very blessed. Anyone who plays in a band for a living for many, many years, like we have in Megadeth, you have certainly a lot of things you have to deal with, and we are certainly one of the success stories for sure.
But when you sit down to author it, do you ask yourself, how honest am I going to be? I mean, is it completely honest, or do you think going, boy, there's some things I sort of got to gloss over? Like, was there a fear of being too honest?
Well, I think it's honest.
'Cause it can be painful, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's certainly honest, but I think you somewhat get selective about the things you want to put in there. Like I have younger children who are teenagers. I have a life off of the stage with people in my home here in Arizona and friends I have. And because I didn't just get out of rehab 30 days ago and I wrote a book and I'm on the talk show circuit right now, because you see a lot of that happen. Lots of times those books and those stories there's access to grind. It's almost a sort of a public cleansing of sorts.
Right.
I don't feel that that's the right thing. We always had this thing, the saying in Megadeth too, that, it's better to, praise in public, criticize in private. And to me, that's just sort of an ethical thing that, in this day of reality TV where everybody wants to see all the dirty laundry out there. Quite honestly, I don't know that everybody does want to see it, but a lot of people put it out there. For me, that's not the book I wanted to write, and that's not my story.
And by the way, I wasn't suggesting that your book was dishonest. I was suggesting more, was it painful to open yourself up?
No, it wasn't painful. No, it was. You know why? Because a lot of the hardships work through them. Things and it's look. Life is a verb. It's always in motion. It's always in action. Things come at you, the good and the bad, and we have to kind of process through them. So this book was definitely not some sort of inventory of my life. I needed to put out there.
And you didn't need to call your therapist after you finished reading it then. Okay.
Exactly. So for me, it was really more just the story of my life. I thought it would be kind of fun to open it up from the musician side of me. Also, what it was like growing up, and then sort of entering into the LA when we formed Megadeth, and a lot of those early Megadeth years. It was cool to have some of my friends also put little quotes and little things, some of their thoughts in there as well, because there's a lot of people that were part of the story, and my heart says, honor those people, lift them up, glorify them for what they did, because it wasn't just me, and there's a lot of us, and it takes a lot of people, and so to me it was kind of a moment to tip my hat and say thank you to them as well.
Now, of course, you're still very much alive, so the story's not over.
Right.
Do you see yourself writing a second book 10, 20 years down the line, or it's like, all right, I've done it, let me live in peace for the next 20 years? Or
honestly,
whatever.
I never thought I'd do this one, to be honest with you, because, to me, these kind of stories, you see these actors and actresses, they're in their later years and they're writing their memoirs, and it's sort of like some Hollywood memoir of, the glory days of Clark Gable and Elizabeth Taylor and all that. And so, but it's trendy, obviously, in our business right now. We're a lot of rock and roll guys, and especially in metal and hard rock people writing these kind of books. So I started to take a little bit different view of it, that it's almost like it's kind of like a solo album of sorts, that you put it out and it just, you're opening your life up for people. And I guess, the fact that I wrote mine, like kind of at the halfway point of my life, I guess indicates that maybe, volume 2, part 2 is somewhere later on in life too.
Right. Hollywood and record companies always like a part 2. And let me ask you one last question. And this one is about Megadeth. Back in 1994, you were contacted to be part of the Kiss My Ass tribute album.
Right.
And you did Strange Ways, and it never was used. How was that? Was it Gene that called you? Was it Larry Mazer, their manager at the time? How did that get set up?
No, Gene was actually handling all of that,
okay.
And our manager Ron Lafitte had he had brought it up, and he kind of just sent it over to me. He said, Dave's busy with things right now, and I think we're actually off the road at the time, but we were in the studio, and so he sent it over to me. I said, sure, I'll be happy to talk to him, and so Gene and I spoke several times about it, and it was quite honestly. It was an expensive endeavor, okay. And I think, quite honestly, the way Megadeth were making records with Max Norman and this, big SSL consoles and digital stuff, it was kind of a hefty price tag, and that was not the kind of approach Gene wanted to use with it. He was kind of wanting, do some 8-track, 16-track recording, keep it kind of lean and mean, and keep it simple, because that was the spirit of it. He's like, it wasn't meant to be some, $50,000, per track kind of endeavor. And quite honestly, that was kind of like the Megadeth records we were making in that day. So it just, our participation was a little out of the, I think it was a little out of the league of what Gene was wanting to do with it,
Okay. So But he calls you and he gets you to do it. You did the track, right? Strange Ways was
Well, we
done.
did do the track. Yeah, we were in. I forgot what we were working on. We did do the track.
This was '94, so it was
I guess it was
right after Euthanasia or just before.
I guess we probably did it during the euthanasia session. Come to think of it, which was here in Arizona when we were working on that record. So in the course of it all, I said, "Hey, let's throw this tune down in case it works out." So we put it down, and I guess I can't even remember how it resolved. I just remember at one point the ship had sailed and, and we weren't on it, So,
well, it's good.
But it was fun to do it because, quite honestly, we were big fans of those songs. And there's some songs that Ace wrote. Ace had this different style. I mean, the Shout It Out Loud, Rock and Roll All Night, the God of Thunder. Those are kind of your probably predictable ones. And we wanted to pick kind of an unpredictable song, as we tend to do with a lot of our covers. And Strange Ways was just that one cool tune. So,
cool tune. And
yeah,
of course,
good question. I don't know. I'm going to see Gene in a couple of months. I guess we'll have to talk about
catch
it.
up.
See what happened with it.
Yeah, catch up. Well, listen, it showed up on War Chest all those years later, and it sounds great. So,
thank you.
Now, if people need to find, first of all, obviously Megadeth.com, but altitude and attitudes. Boy, those two words together. Is there a website for it?
Yeah, just Facebook, Altitudes and Attitude. Yeah,
right.
We were. It's funny. We just, we had to come up with a little name, and I thought, Altitudes and Attitude. We've seen them all, done them all, been there. So, and it's kind of cool. It's funny in a way. It kind of almost explains me and Frank's our personalities, and there's just kind of a little definition of who the two of us are.
Yeah, and Frankie's great. I mean, between the Anthrax and the acting and him as a father, he's always talking about the kids. It's great.
Yeah,
guy. Great guy.
Well, the thing about Frank too is, he had these couple of tunes that he brought to the table, and Frank is, there's a very creative side of him that doesn't always maybe come through, because when you're in a band, you've kind of got your roles in the group and everything. And when I heard those tunes, I was like, man, I'll stand behind these in a heartbeat. Frank's my friend. He's certainly a fantastic bass player. Mm-hmm. And I think the two of us had some kind of commonalities with that it was like, man, there's other music that we all write, probably all of us in all of our bands, that this was just a cool moment in time for this to just come up to the surface.
Yeah, I agree. Again, I said it. I heard the tunes. I really liked them. I mean, I really thought they were well done. And let's hope there's more. Let's hope there's not only an EP but a full album at some point.
Yeah, the door's open now to have this little writing session between us now.
There you go. It'll be the Big 5 tour soon.
the opening band, right?
The opening band. You'll be third on the bill at this point.
Yeah.
But great. But thank you for the chat, and enjoy the heat of Phoenix while we freeze up here in Montreal.
Yeah, I'm digging it here. It's nice. Good time to be off the road. Good time to be home.
Great. Well, thank you for doing this. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See you, Mitch.
Bye now.
Bye.